So now let's take a look at what is the promise. So I'll erase this at this point. We've now looked at the problem, low growth, high inertia, companies not wanting to change what they're doing, continuing on and hoping things are going to be different. But now we're going to look at what is the promise. And I want to point out this outstanding book by Eliyahu Goldratt called The Goal. And this plot I'm pulling from reading his book. What we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the profitability, the marginal profitability, that is to say, as a function of what he calls the throughput, which is the number sold. This is an important point. In his book, he makes a significant point out of the fact that it's not how much you put in inventory, it's not how much supply you have, it's how many go to the store and are sold, because that's what's putting cash in your company's coffers. So we're going to look the same way with innovation. We're going to look at throughput in terms of dollars per year. And let's say that this is the zero line. When you first start out, as your productivity is very low, you have losses. These are all losses, and these are due to fixed costs. Somebody has to pay for the lights, somebody has to pay for the parking lot, you have perhaps a library, you have your research campus or your research office, you have laboratory equipment, your employees, which are hard to replace very quickly. So you have all these fixed costs. And so if your throughput is too low, your fixed costs totally eat you up. At some point, your marginal profitability, it exceeds zero. However, you have to make up for all these fixed cost losses. And so this is what we call the break-even point. You need at least this much research in order to break even, for your R&D team to break even. Now, there are a couple interesting points here. One is, if you go above this break-even point, this curve keeps going like this, the next unit you sell has the highest marginal profit. So this, because your fixed costs are already diluted out, your marginal profits continue to go up. And so at this point, we have our profit from our innovation team. And you can see that it's just a fraction of the sales that are putting this here. So if we're a little bit below, we have net loss. If we're a little bit above, we have net profit. Now, one of the magical things that Goldratt talks about is getting away from a cost accounting mindset and into a throughput mindset. And why does he say that? You can never make money by simply reducing costs. You have to have throughput in order to make money. And his point is, if I can nudge this throughput up just a little bit, I can double my innovation profits. So to double my innovation profits, I don't need to double my throughput. I just need to nudge them up a little bit. This is such a key insight. And it's going to be a key feature of what we're going to look at. So if I say, what's a simple equation to look at the profitability of an innovation process? I can say that the profitability is a sum from 1 to n projects. See, this n is all the projects in your portfolio of the revenue of that project, the anticipated revenue of that project, times the anticipated margin, profit margin of that product, times the probability of success of that project, probability of success due to all sorts of risks, due to marketing risks, due to changes of the world risks, due to technical things that can't be overcome. There are all sorts of risks that go into this probability, divided by the time required to go from the conception of the idea to the launch of the final product. This one is frequently ignored in many R&D teams. They say, well, let's just keep working on it until we get it right. But you need that certain throughput rate in order to have a profitable innovation center. So you have 5 variables here. You have the portfolio, the end projects in your portfolio that you can adjust, the revenue, the margin, the probability of success, and the time. And each of these is a lever that we can control in order to increase the innovation profitability of your team. Now, another key point here is that if we can just nudge, this gets back to Goldroth's comment, if we can nudge by 10% each of these, so if we can increase your revenue, perhaps by expanding your market by 10%, if we can increase your profit margin, perhaps by increasing the value of the products by 10%, if we can increase the probability of success, perhaps by getting the correct questions sooner and so we can answer them sooner, and if we can decrease the time by 10% through a number of methods, then we can increase the profits by 1.1 to the 4th power equals 1.46. So that means that the change is plus 46% in the profitability simply by nudging each of these 10%. To me, that's amazing. Small nudges make a big difference. And so the question, of course, is how do we nudge it? And that's what I want to get into in much of the rest of what I have to say. I do want to show one example first. And that is, this is related to a project that I did with one client. If we have a pie that has a $40 million a year anticipated revenue, and we have a 30%, that we expect the profit margin to be 30%. Let's say it's early in the project, we expect a 40% probability of success, and we expect it to take 5 years. Then this says that the profit margin, the profit from this acceleration, and I use the word acceleration because revenue is dollars per year, and I'm dividing by time, so that's dollars per year. It's how much I'm enhancing my yearly revenue, so it's an acceleration. If I can do this, then the profit margin is 0.96 million dollars per year, or per year squared. Now, if I can increase to the betterment each of these by 10%, so if I can take this to $44 million, if I can take the profit margin to 33%, if I can change the probability of success to 44%, and if I can drop the time by half a year, 1/10 of 5 years, I now increase my profitability to $1.42 million per year squared. It's a dramatic change in profitability. Again, 46%. So these are the types of numbers that we can start to deal with. And this one, which is 5 years, often has capacity for even more. We can sometimes change that one even more dramatically and take some things that are even in your existing pipeline and have been there for 10 years, 15 years. I've heard of cases where companies lose their patent rights because something's still in the pipeline. They still haven't gotten it through regulatory or toxicology or something. And so we can perhaps take, for some of your longer projects, it's from 5 things that are projected now to be 8 years, sometimes even down to 4 years or even 3 years. That's a dramatic change in the innovation profitability. Okay, so how do we adjust? What can we do? I'm going to erase all this now.